Timeless classic or toy commercial? Masterpiece or manifestation of nostalgia? This is our full retrospective of TMNT 87. Let's go, Shellheads. So we're cracking into TMNT 1987, the full retrospective, because guys, the reality is going season by season got tedious, and you know what? Sometimes you're wrong. You guys did start to lose interest. So we're covering the entire thing. This is a full retrospective. So, masterpiece or manifestation of nostalgia? Toy commercial or a timeless classic? Let's talk about it. The original cartoon, the OG of the Turtles verse in animation, holds its place. I will not begrudge any shellheads who look at this and say, this is my Turtles. Because, guys, this was my first introduction into the Turtles. And honestly, as Turtles fans, even if 87 isn't your cup of tea, we have a lot to thank it for. Just being honest. Yeah, we all know. I think anybody who has been exposed to the original cartoon knows that it is certainly more lighthearted than some of the other iterations of the Turtles. And I think that tends to be one of the chief complaints in why, if you are of a particular vintage, there is an ongoing conversation between 87 and 2003. Generally, there's enough of a gap after 2003 that most of the rest of those conversations tend to be isolated away from those first two animated ventures. Most people don't talk about the next mutation. I've said that before. I think that gets an unfair amount of flack, but that's an entirely other conversation. Anyway, guys, those two series tend to get compared to each other because one deviates greatly from the source material and the other one tends to be way closer to the source material and way more loyal to it. So if you are unaware, the Mirage comics are darker, grittier in tone. The original series was in black and white. There was no distinguishing characteristics between the different Turtles. We didn't have multicolored bands. We didn't have their initials on their belt buckles. There wasn't much in the way of differentiation for characteristics. It actually wasn't until the 87 cartoon that we started to get the different character profiles for the different Turtles. And so we have a lot to thank this iteration of the Turtles for when we look at the more modern takes of the Turtles, and we have the hothead, the leader, the tech guy, and the goofball. And even if you are looking at the, I guess, second generation and onward of Turtles comics, and that adaptation of the more characterized individuals, again, you point back here as the genesis point for this. And so one of the biggest complaints is, like I said, the big differentiation between this and the source material. With 87, the story picks up with the origin of Splinter deviating greatly from the Mirage comics, which, by the way, I don't think we get Turtle Mania if the cartoon looks like the Mirage comics. I don't think we get the turtles on everything in the toy aisle, including lunch pails and including on t-shirts and trading cards and action figures in the whole 9 yards, if it's dark and it's gritty and parents don't approve and it can't be shown on TV. So we have in this version Splinter, who is formerly a human being and is an honorable ninja master named Hamato Yoshi, who is banned from the Foot Clan in Japan after being deceived by the Sidious Orokusaki, the Shredder, who pins Yoshi's Kagogi to the wall with a knife, preventing him from being able to kneel before their sensei, which is a big deal in this culture. They at least get that right from a cultural perspective, which is seen as an insult. And so Yoshi removes the knife, and the sensei and his followers perceive this to be an assassination attempt and a sign of disrespect. And so they exile him from the ninja clan. And so from there, Yoshi moves to New York City, where he is forced to live in the sewers. While in the sewers, he befriends rats. And one day, he finds four turtles who recently were bought from a pet store by an unnamed little boy who accidentally puts them down into the sewer. And so he returns one day from his explorations around New York City to find that the turtles are covered in this strange glowing ooze. The substance caused the turtles, who most recently exposed to Yoshi, to become humanoid, and thus causes Yoshi to become a humanoid rat. Fun facts: this is one of only two instances within all of the Turtles verse where the turtles come to Hamato Yoshi before being turned into the mutant turtles. The other one is the Archie Comics TMNT Adventures run. The other major departure here is that in most other adaptations, Splinter is actually Hamato Yoshi's pet rat, who is also exposed to the mutagen that transforms our heroes in a half shell into the TMNT. And so in this iteration, Yoshi adopts the four turtles as his sons and trains them in the fine art of ninjutsu and names them after four famous Italian Renaissance artists: Leonardo, Donatello, Raphael, and Michelangelo. This is the only time in this version where they are always addressed by their full names. They are not given their nicknames in this. That it's always the full name. Each of the turtles wear different color bandanas and have different weapons. Leo has the blue bandana and wields two katanas. Donnie has the purple bandana and wields a bow staff. Mikey has an orange bandana and wields two nunchucks, which is later replaced by a grappling hook as the series goes on. And Raph has red bandana and yields to Sai. And so, meanwhile, as this is happening, Oroku Saki has left Japan and has tracked Yoshi to New York City, where he intends on destroying him once and for all. He has become associated with Krang, a disembodied alien brain who has been banished from his home in Dimension X, where he is a great warlord. And he's taken on a new persona, donning a metal clad suit with a steel blade claw and a long cape, going now by the Shredder. So by the first season, it becomes clear that the mutagen that transformed the turtles and Splinter into their new form was dumped into the sewer by Shredder in an effort to ultimately destroy Yoshi, thinking that it would poison him and unalive him. The turtles want to force him to turn Splinter back into a human again, which quickly evolves into stopping Shredder's ongoing criminal career with the aid of our favorite Channel 6 reporter, April O'Neil. April is another topic that we need to talk about. For a lot of people, this is the titular version of April O'Neil. Guys, I'm going to say something spicy. I believe that there are only two versions of April that can be considered the absolute creme de la creme, the absolute best that the Turtles verse has to offer. That is the April from Mutant Mayhem and the April from 2003. They're the most fully fleshed out. They have the best character. They're the best portrayed. I said what I said. The Turtles turn to vigilantism, becoming a crime fighting force operating outside of the jurisdiction of law enforcement, which causes them to cross paths and get in league with our favorite hockey mask wearing vigilante. Nope, not that guy, Casey Jones. And so, for the first couple of seasons, it seems like the Turtles are constantly preoccupied with hiding their existence. That, though, seems to be slowly relaxed by the last couple of seasons, where most citizens are well aware of who the Turtles are and the fact that they exist. The turtles also frequently have to deal with citizens misunderstanding their intentions because of the employer of April, one Bernie Thompson, the president of Channel 6 News, as well as their cameraman, Vernon Frederick, who distrust the turtles and frequently blame them for the trouble that the Shredder and Krang cause. Again, we have to look at the impact that the 87 cartoon had on other cartoons that exist. The creators of Spider-Man the Animated Series were very open in stating just how much influence they took from TMNT in writing their characters and how they portrayed J. Jonah Jameson as it relates to Spider-Man. And so Shredder, Krang, Bebop, and Rocksteady, who are two thugs that are morphed into an animal form by exposure to Shredder's mutagen, and a small army of robotic foot soldiers try to destroy the turtles and take over the world. Much of their quest for world domination hinges on bringing the Technodrome to Ruse, which is Krang's mobile fortress and his and the Shredder's base of operations. They try to bring it to the surface as it is either stuck in the Earth's core, Dimension X, the Arctic, or the Arctic Ocean. And that's basically involving different characters in different subplots, essentially the first 7 seasons or so of TMNT. So it wasn't until the final 3 seasons where the show went through a dramatic overhaul. At this point, you have to remember the time that we're talking about here. At 7 seasons, the show had already lived well past the average lifespan of a lot of Saturday morning animated series. And for a lot of people, they argue the fact that it had already overstayed its welcome. It was during these last 3 seasons that the animation became darker and closer to the movie's style because at this point, the movies had come out. The Jim Henson movies had hit the scene, and it was like a whole new breath of fresh air for this show that was struggling at this point. The color of the sky during these seasons changed from that traditional bright blue to a continuous and ominous dark red sky, which was commonplace for newer action oriented children's programming at the time, and is why the later seasons are deemed the red sky seasons of TMNT, and the theme song changed. The introduction sequence added in clips from the first live action film, and the show took on a darker and more action oriented atmosphere. It was during the final 2 seasons of the show that the Turtles finally banish Shredder and Krang to Dimension X. They destroy the engines and the trans-dimensional portal of the Technodrome, preventing them from returning to Earth, though he appears in a 3-part season 10 episode, The Power of Three. Replacing Shredder is a new villain, Lord Dreg, an evil alien warlord that appears as the new chief nemesis for our turtles. Lord Dreg begins a propaganda campaign against the turtles, turning the general population against them and in favor of him and his forces. However, Dreg is eventually outed as a villain, and the turtles are finally hailed as the heroes that they truly are. They also suffer from severe mutations that would turn them into giant hulking beasts, but would in turn force them to lose their intelligence temporarily. It's also during this time that the Turtles acquire a new ally, Carter, who is a POC and suffers from an incurable mutation disease. And it's in the last episode of the series that the Turtles trap Dreg also in Dimension X. In 2009, the Turtles, Shredder, Krang, and various other characters from the 87 cartoon make their triumphant return for the 25th anniversary movie, Turtles Forever, which we will talk about in its own video. But long story short, the Turtles meet up with various other counterparts from other timelines. It's where we establish the Turtleverse, the Turtles multiverse, which is a word that makes me cringe because feels like everybody and their mother is trying to establish a multiverse, even though we're talking about something that is 15-ish years old at this point. Lastly, in 16 and 17, the 80s Turtles meet up with their counterparts from the 2012 series in a crossover episode, Transdimensional Turtles. And in the crossover special, Wanted, Bebop and Rocksteady. The Turtles, Rocksteady, Bebop, and Krang's original voice actors were able to reprise their roles, but Shredder was replaced by Kevin Michael Richardson because the late, great James Avery passed away in 2013. So here's the deal. Nobody can deny the impact of the Turtles that the Turtles had on pop culture, right? While the story here diverged heavily from the original conception of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the 1987 series is probably one of the most notable, and to some, the most notable and popular incarnation. Guys, for those of you that weren't around, this version of the Turtles, really the only thing that took this version of the Turtles down was the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. That was pretty much the only thing that could take down Turtle Mania at this point. This series drove the franchise to a phenomenal higher status that Peter Laird and Kevin Eastman openly admitted for all of the gripes that they had about this series was the reason why the Turtles were launched to superstardom and would become pop culture icons. This series was in production for 9 years and was still quite popular when it went out of production and was responsible for introducing many of the catchphrases associated with the Turtles, such as Cowabunga, Turtles fight with honor, Go Green Machine, and Turtle Power. This version of the Turtles is responsible for many of us growing up playing the video games, growing up with the action figures, and is undoubtedly a prominent fixture in the lore and legacy of TMNT, which is why many people consider it the definitive version of the Turtles. Now, I know I wax poetically about this. I know I have a lot to say about this. It's because I'm a bit of a historian for the Turtles, and I am very aware of this edition of the Turtles. I had the Turtle Van, I had the Turtle Cycle, I had the action figures, I had the toys. I'm very well aware of the impact that this version of the Turtles had. Even though do absolutely think from a storytelling standpoint, other versions of the Turtles do it better. There is no denying what it was back then. The problem, though, is that it doesn't really age very well. There's a lot of tropes that are that were very prominent in the 80s and 90s that are very present in this series. There's a reason why I don't put April O'Neil as one of the titular versions of the character because she's a giant walking trope. Even in comparison to the other major version of the Turtles at the time, which was the 90s movies, not even the actress from the 90s movies was as much of a trope as the animated version. So I understand that for some, what I'm saying is unpopular because that's your version of the Turtles. So I want you guys to sound off down in the comments and let me know, do you guys love the Turtles? Do you guys love this version of the Turtles? If so, who is your favorite Turtles from this time? This is the series that made me love Mikey. Mikey will always be my guy. Michelangelo will always be my turtle. And so, and I thank this series for instilling that. So to answer the question, is it a masterpiece? Debatable. Is it a toy commercial? Absolutely. Is it a significant part of my childhood? Definitely. Will it always have a fond place in my memory? Without a doubt. Honestly, if you're a fan of the Turtles, I think that you should do yourself the favor, especially because it's now easier than ever to get your hands on the original series, watch through it, even if just once. I'll admit, especially if you are an adult at this point, you it's easy to have in the background. You know, if you're working, if you're doing something, have it on in the background because, yeah, some of it's story of the week, a lot of it's story of the week, but it still is a look back at the originals, the ones that paved the way for other versions of the animated turtles and the ones that paved the way for the beloved, myself included, 90s movies that are works of art. So, with that, that's a wrap, Shellheads. Guys, I want you to hit the like button, make sure that you're subscribed. Most of you guys watching are not subscribed because when you guys engage with these videos, you guys let me know what you like. Guys, sound off below. Let me know what other series you want me to cover. We are cracking into the '03 series next. You guys asked for it. It's coming. But until next time, Cowbunga Shellheads.